Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Seth Joyner Show. Got another great show for you today. Today is Giveaway Tuesday. I have some more information on that at the end of the show. Joining me today, a little later on, will be Clyde Simmons. I know in the promo that Eddie George is supposed to come on, but as you guys know, he is now the head coach at Tennessee State. He has some coaching things that came up this afternoon, so he won't be joining us, but Clyde Simmons will be joining us a little later on. I want to get into a little bit of, what's going on with the Philadelphia Eagles as of late. The Eagles signed quarterback Nick Mullins to a one-year deal, so we've got another backup potentially on the Philadelphia Eagles roster, which is good. Now I think we've got three with Joe Flacco backing up potentially, or the competition until it's confirmed that Jalen Hurts is the starter. But we got Nick Flacco and Nick Mullins. We also signed Richard Rodgers that really expanded what we have at the tight end position. You guys have asked me as of late about what I thought about the tight end position. I think that in due time, Zach Ertz probably will be traded. We'll just have to wait and see how all of that pans out, what the Eagles can actually get for him. The problem is, everybody knows that they want to move on, so no one's really offering anything at this time. So I'm sure the Eagles will, temper and watch this whole situation and try to figure out exactly what the market is for Zach and try to get as much as they can for him. The tight end room, my goodness, is packed. The Eagles have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tight ends. A lot of young guys that are taking some flyers. You got Caleb Wilson, third-year guy, was waived by the Cardinals. You got Jason Crome, fifth-year guy, was waived by the Buffalo Bills. Hakeem Butler, third-year guy that was waived by the Carolina Panthers. And then the Eagles have brought in two guys as undrafted free agent, Jack Stoll, pretty big guy, probably a blocking tight end from Nebraska, and Tyree Jackson out of Buffalo, another tall guy, 6'7" kid. But there's just, in that tight end room, there's a lot going on. And I think, when you see as many guys at one position, that many guys at one position, I think that, the writing is pretty much on the wall as far as, what's going to transpire with Zach Ertz. I mean, to be honest with you, I'd like to see them figure out a way to, keep Zach Ertz on the team this year. I think it only can make the situation better. But, if he's unhappy and the team is unwilling to meet his contract needs, then this is a situation that, the Eagles are kind of, in a place where they're going to have to move on, whether they really want to or not. I think they would love to keep him, love to have him for at least one more year. You got him under contract. But, at the end of the day, if you can't make it happen, you can't make it happen. A couple of things has transpired in the news as far as the coaches are concerned, because a lot of you guys asked me about, and listen, I will, entertain some questions. Clyde's going to join me in about 20 minutes. But there's a couple of things I like to chat with you guys about first, and then I'll look at some of you guys' questions, and we'll delve into some of your questions as far as some of the comments that I make before we bring Clyde on. A lot of you guys have asked me questions about what do I think about Nick Sirianni, and what I've said is basically let's give the guy a chance. I said that I had some strong opinions about Doug Peterson when he was hired, and yet look at what he did. He brought Philadelphia its first Super Bowl in over 57, 58 years. So that proves to everyone that you might not like what you see at the pressers as far as Nick Sirianni is concerned, but some of the things that I've heard him talk about leads me to believe that what we see at the podium and what we see on the field are two different things. And I say, hey, give the guy every opportunity to be successful, because he's going to be the football coach here, a minimum, the next 3 years. What I like that I'm seeing and things that make me optimistic is Nick is always talking about competition. And I just believe that competition brings out the best in everyone. You will find the better players at every position when you have competition. The cream will always rise to the top when you have competition. And there's no better way to solidify meritocracy in the game of football than pure competition. You put the guys out there, you give them a playbook, okay? You teach them the skill sets and the techniques that are needed to play each and every position, and let them go out there and battle it out. That's what I love. And you hear this guy talking about it all the time. I commented on a post on Twitter today where Nick was talking about he had just walked into an interview, and he was talking about, he just got done. He apologized for being late, and he had just got done with a 3-point shooting contest against Greg Ward that he lost. So not only is he trying to build competition among the football team, but here's a guy who competes with his players at different things. That's a way of building trust. That's a way of building cohesiveness on your team. He's not just a head coach that's going to delegate duties and responsibilities to his position coach. The other thing I like is that he's one-on-one with these guys all the time. I mean, you can see videos all over the place where he's coaching and he's talking to the players and he's talking to them about, what they want to do and how they're trying to do it. There's a video in that same video, he was talking with Devontae Smith about, catching a ball and the release of the football. And then he made a comment about running routes, which was really important to me because you guys have heard me talk about this, ad nauseum, because, the thought has been over the last couple of years that the Philadelphia Eagles wide receivers can't get open. They don't get open. You guys have heard me talk about route running and how you set up the routes. If you want to run a route to the outside, you push the DB to the inside, feeding him that you might go inside, and then you stem the route at the top and you break out. That's how you create the 3 to 5 yards of separation that's going to allow you as a wide receiver to get open. Nick's comment, quote, was he talked about no banana routes. Okay, when you get to the top of the route, we want to put our foot in the ground. That is the stem at the top of the route. And then we want to break out or we want to break in. Okay, now the Philadelphia Eagles have not run routes that way. They have run the banana route. They have run the routes to the extent where, if they're running the in route, they run 5 yards and they run in. Well, if I'm a defensive player and I'm covering a guy man to man, that's the easiest way for me to cover a route is by you just running the route with no stem, no setup in the route. So that tells me, okay, that already we're heading in the right direction as far as how we're coaching our wide receivers to win at the top of the route, how to win at the line of scrimmage. And you're not only hearing, Aaron Moorhead, the wide receivers coach, talk about it, but you're hearing Nick Sirianni, the head coach, talk about the importance of that because he understands that separation hasn't been there based upon the film that he's watched over the last 4 years because the wide receivers haven't been coached to necessarily do that. They got a guy in Devontae Smith that understands route running, understands how to set up defensive backs, understands where the holes are, in zone defense and things of that nature. So that guy is miles ahead of where everyone else is. But what you see for John Hightower, for Travis Fulgham, for Quez Watkins, for Greg Ward Jr., dare I say, for J-Jaw, we've got a coaching staff that's now teaching these players what it takes and what is necessary for them to win and get open at the top of the route. And I'm encouraged by that because I can tell you right now, if that level of coaching is going on just for the wide receivers, then I promise you that level of coaching is going on across the board. And that only bodes well for the players on this roster, the players on this team, especially when you have such a young team. You can't just give them a playbook and tell them to go do it. What you've got to do is you got to show them how to do it. You got to show them why you're doing it. And if you can do that and the players really, really want to get better, then they're going to implement all of these things to help make themselves be better. And that's just going to help Jalen Hurts, a young quarterback who's just trying to find his way, being thrust into the role of being the starting quarterback. I just love the interaction. Another thing, I was listening to Tracy Rocker, the defensive line coach's comments about the D-line. I think a reporter asked him, well, what style of defense are you going to be? Are you going to be read and react with the defensive line? Or are they going to be in attack mode, so on and so forth? A defensive line, again, which is the strength of the football team. Last year, the Philadelphia Eagles had 49 sacks. That's third in the NFL. 40 of those sacks were by the defensive linemen, okay? But at times, they played extremely undisciplined. On plays away, they chased everything. That meant that on misdirection plays, there was no containment. It sounds to me like, Tracy Rocker is trying to rectify that. He talked about playing situational football. That means understanding in certain formations that the bootleg, that the misdirection, all of those things come into play. So let's understand how teams are trying to attack us, and let's just not just go running to make a play without considering, that when play goes away, that something can come back. Let's take a step. Let's look down the line. Let's make sure nothing is coming back. Let's make sure the quarterback isn't rolling back before we go and we pursue the football. Because if you're a left defensive end and the play goes to your right, that's not your play to make. Your play is anything coming back. Your play is that quarterback running the bootleg and coming back the other direction. And when you watch the Eagles over the last 5 years, that has not been their mode of operation. Their mode of operation was try to chase it down from the back, try to make a play at the expense of being fundamentally unsound. And to me, that's just not the right way, to play the game. But Tracy talked about, hey, listen, we're going to be attacking. We always want to be attacking with the players that we have. I mean, you look at from a depth perspective, you got Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave, Hassan Ridgeway, Milton Williams, who they drafted in the 3rd round, and Marlon Tuipulotu, who they drafted out of USC, a guy that I really, really like. So they've got enough depth at the defensive tackle position, and they've also got enough talent at the defensive tackle position to continuously be dominant. Even when Fletcher's out of the game, even when Javon Hargrave is out of the game, you've got enough talent there to continuously get it done. And then he talked about, the defensive ends, Brandon Graham, Derek Barnett, who's in a contract year. So you can best believe he's going to be looking to make a statement. The signing of Kerrigan from the Washington football team, a guy that doesn't have to play every down, but a guy who still has supreme talent and can rush the passer and be very disruptive. A guy like Josh Sweat, who really flashed and came on in spots last year. So they've got enough across the board. And I'm pretty sure they got some young guys that will emerge and show themselves in camp and challenge in camp that may wind up on the practice squad. And by the time the season is over, may work themselves into some playing time. But he talked about, listen, there's going to be times where we're going to be in attack mode. There's going to be times where we're going to have to read the situation. There's going to be a time where, hey, we have to read and react. In the game of football, as a defensive player, that is what you're doing. That's what tells you what the play is, where the play is going, how the offense is trying to attack you, by reading and reacting to what the offense is doing. So I love and I like what it is, the philosophy. Brandon Graham talked about, how they're looking at the skill set that each and every guy, has and what they bring to the table. And the fact that, they're trying to devise a scheme and create a scheme based upon the strengths of the players. To me, that's always a good thing. I really, there's very few systems in today's football, I believe, that you can look at those systems and say to yourself, hey, you know what, we're just going to run this system. The guys have to adapt to the system. No, I think that, in today's NFL, it's a lot different. When I came into Philadelphia, Buddy Ryan had a system, and we were responsible for learning that system, implementing, running, and perfecting that system. That was then. The game was a lot more predictable then. First and second down, you had regular people on the field. On third down, you had, either 12 personnel or 13 personnel, 3 wide receivers in the game. So that required you to make that change there. But the game was more predictable then. Now you got third down offenses that pretty much live on the field. You're basically running a 4-2 front with an extra defensive back in the field. So on the field. So you got to kind of figure out, okay, how all of this comes together and how it all meshes together. So I like what Tracy Rocker is doing. I like the position, that the strongest position on the defensive side of the ball is in, from a depth perception and also from a perception of what they want to do and how they want to do it. Okay. I think that's about it. Listen, we're going to continue to talk some Eagles, but as you guys know, I got my partner in crime, one of my best friends, my draft mate, fellow Hall of Famer, Eagles Hall of Famer, Clyde Simmons is going to join us right now. Hey, listen, he is now the defensive line coach for Tennessee State. I am thrilled for him because, he's been in and out of coaching jobs, and I know that this is something that he's got a passion for, something that he loves to do, something that he actively pursues. And I'm happy for him to be in a situation where he can thrive and succeed and pass on his knowledge of what he knows about this game. And trust me, my brother knows a lot about the game. My man Slide, what's going on?
What's the word, Hammer Time?
You got it, brother. You got it. What's that on your chin, man?
Dude, I'm getting old, man. I just try to fool people for a while, then I'll cut it off later and see what happens after that.
I feel you, man. I have to keep mine off. I got too much salt in mine. I don't want to look that old yet, man. But,
me, after a while, I stopped caring.
I hear you, man. Listen, my listeners are just thrilled to have you on. Over the last year and a half, I've had a lot of Eagles greats on. Glad to have you on. Want to talk to you about what you guys got going on down in Tennessee at Tennessee State. Talk a little bit about the Eagles, talk about the changes, that we witnessed in the NFL. But let's start first with, Tennessee State. Talk to me and tell me how all of that came into being, because I'm happy that you're in a good place right now, man.
I'll tell you what happened was I was at Western, where I was formerly coaching at, where I went to school. And Fish calls me out of the blue. I've talked to Fish probably since we left Arizona, but left L.A. maybe 4 times in the last 2 years. And it's usually on his birthday or something that comes up. And he just called me out of the blue and said, "Hey, we're putting this thing together. Want to keep it hush hush, and until we get it right." And then he was telling me all the people that he had involved with, and he was saying Eddie is going to be the head coach. And I played against Eddie when he was a young fella, and I was an old guy, playing all the stuff. But meeting the man, one of the greatest people you can meet. I mean, honestly, it's a lot of times, how I am. I don't give people credit unless they do it. And
right.
When I got to say, when just talking to the guy, hanging with him, just chatting with him, great people. And so, with that kind of atmosphere in there that's the building in there, it's great people that he's got working with him. He's got Hugh on the offense. He's got Brandon running the defense. You got Joe Bowden. You got Keith Burns as the special teams coordinator. Richard McNutt as the safeties. And we got these young cats in Keenan and Corey Harkey, and then Pep as the running back coach. Man, I think it's a great staff. We're going to run some things, get some people right, and teach football.
Well, that's awesome, man. Listen, you guys do have a stacked staff. I tell you that. I played with Keith Burns in Denver my last year. He was the special teams captain. I know he's been coaching on and off in the NFL for quite some time.
Yeah.
Heck of a guy. But I got an opportunity to spend some time with Eddie a couple of weeks back. I was in LA playing in Marcus Allen's golf tournament, and Eddie and I had an opportunity to sit down and talk some football, enjoy a cigar together, and listen, I was really impressed. I mean, he is a class dude, and I think that he's put together a great staff, because if I understand correctly, he's never had a head coaching job before. So I think some of the keys are, if you've never been in that position before, yet you find yourself in that position, is being able to surround yourself with great position coaches that you got a guy like Hugh Jackson, who's been a head coach in the NFL before, who can kind of show him and teach him along the way and advise him along the way. But you got to have those people in positions that can teach players, as he grows as a head coach.
Exactly. I mean, one day Eddie's doing a great job of relying and talking with Hugh, talking with Coach Fisher, another former head coach in the NFL. He's doing it the right way. He's I don't have all the answers, and these are classic Eddie. I don't have all the answers, but hey, we are going to find the answers. Right. And when you got a guy like that to work for, amidst his shortcomings, hey, I think the world is ahead of him. And then when you got somebody that says, "Hey, we, not me,"
right?
When you got that kind of thing where that guy ain't caught up on being the show or being the namesake or something, and he's humble. He doesn't say no to people. I mean, my hat's off to him, because I was like, dude, if I was you, I would just walk off. But that's just me, But because he's sitting there, and 2 hours later, he's still there.
Right.
And he's tired, but that's how giving he is.
Right. Well, listen, I'm aware of some of your former stops as a line coach and some of the pain that you endured. I'm assuming you've had an opportunity, to meet some of your young bucks that you're going to be coaching this year. Tell me about some of them, and what's the greatest challenge as a university you guys are going to have moving forward, trying to build a winner at Tennessee State?
Well, I got a couple good linemen in there, and some of them got a chance to maybe play at the next level. It all depends on how well they get in there. One is Day. I'm gonna butcher his name up. Is Devon. Shoot, I ain't gonna mess that man name up like that. But it's Day. He's got a chance. Athletic, former Kentucky transfer. He reminds you of a shorter version of Mike Pitts. And he probably ain't as a dominant run stopper as Mike was, but he may be a hair better pass rusher.
Right.
And then we got a couple other young cats, they're freshmen and all the stuff right there, but athletic, long, good size, put heavy handed. They look like Sam backers, but we the 40 front and Sam Backer and a defensive end, especially in today's game, are the same people. Only difference is one may be a little bit better at dropping than the other. That's it. I think as in what we're going to have as players, they just got to get themselves in better shape. And I jokingly talked to these guys. I was like, y'all still a little too spongy for me, just because I just believe that the way we approach the football now, especially, you got to affect the passer, and you got to be able to stop the run. Of course, that's a staple that people don't understand, that you still got to be able to do that. But number one thing is, when you stop the run, you got to be able to rush the passer.
Right.
And if you can't affect that quarterback, you're gonna be there for a long day. And because that's why in the NFL, these guys who can rush the passer, guys who can protect the passer, and receivers and corners are one of the most highly sought after positions after the quarterback. So
Right.
when you get all of those things, in fact, the factor in all of those things, I think up front we're gonna be all right. I think we're gonna be all right. Still got to get him in a little bit better shape and all the stuff, but we got time on that side because conditioning doesn't happen day before the game. It starts 5 months ago.
Right.
So and the good thing about it coming in here a month out, I keep telling, hey guys, got to get yourself in shape because I promise you, individual is gonna be a monster, and you got to get through individual.
I
And
know that.
you know how individual is up front for us guys, man. It's go, 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 go. And then at some point, you know what? I'm gonna give you time to catch your breath because you're gonna need time to catch your breath before we go to 907.
Right.
Team. All of those things that you got to perform at still at a high level.
So talk to me about, the transformation of the defensive end position. Now, you've got a guy who's a little bigger that plays on the left side, pretty much, because it's still believed that most teams want to run to their right. And then on the weak side, you've got these what we used to call back in the day, these tweeners, guys that are like 250 to 265, 270 at the most, that play standing up, wrong foot up, and all of that kind of stuff. There's been such a transformation, at that position more than any other position. And I understand why, because, you need that pass rusher on the other side because teams are pretty much living in three wide receiver sets every single down now, if not more. On the college level, even more. But, I'm old school in my thinking. I still want a 4-3 defensive end, a guy that's, 6'5", 275 to 280 pounds, because most of the time that left tackle is a beast. I mean, he's a grown man, and I see it so many times in the NFL where, that edge rusher lines up on that left tackle and he gets swallowed up. He gets beaten up all day long, and he may flash once or twice during the game, but for the most part, he gets dominated because he's giving up, 50, 60 pounds.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the way the game has evolved into it because you look at it like this. We just take about the front that we played in, the defense that we played in Philadelphia. Before Reggie stopped becoming winner Reggie comes in about 285, 290,
Right.
295, somewhere around there. You got Pitts, that's about a 290 tackle. You got Jerome, that's a 290 tackle. And then I was like 275, 280. Especially in the younger days. And then up front wise, we were big.
Right.
That's what, because we had to deal with a run game that Washington, Dallas, the Cardinals was big up front. So we had to handle big people up front. But the good body about it is we were athletic though.
Right.
Now in today's game, because this game is so much faster now, it's not a power game as it was back then. It's more of a speed game. So you don't have time to be said, they're going to step back and 7-step drop you, or, 5-step drop you. It's 3 steps and bam, 4 steps. That 5th step, bam, ball's out. So you got to be faster. So it transitions. So guys that would normally be like wheel backers or Sams or something when we played are defensive ends now. Khalil Mack, Robert Quinn, or those kind of guys where they got that first step as a monster. And the thing about it is they talk about affecting the passer. You're not necessarily going to get a ton of sacks, but you're affecting the passer. That's why a guy like Aaron Donald is so great at what he does. He's affecting the passer at a higher rate than most tackles do, because the way I was trained and the way I believe in rushing the passer as a unit, if you got 4 guys that 1 out of 5, 1 out of 6 times can touch or affect the quarterback, but you got 4 guys doing that, and at any point in time that you say 1 or 2 guys are doing it or winning, 1 or 6, 1 out of 4, 1 out of 5 times, 1 out of 6 times, and then you got 4 of them that doing it. But then you get a guy who like Aaron Donald who's at 1.35, 1.3, and then when he was in his heyday, he's still a good football player. J.J. Watt, with all that length and size that he had, that's affected him at 1.4, 1.3. Every play, those things that makes a difference about how people have to structures their offense around. Because, if you get a quarterback to move off a spot, his accuracy goes down.
Mm.
And if he can sit in there and say, put my foot down and plant, and bam, they throw BBs through Cheerios now. It used to be a time, but you know what? All the quarterback had to do was manage the game,
right,
hand the ball off, run the game, play good defense, win 17-14. It's long gone as those days that people want to play that kind of style of football. Now, there's a few teams out there that will still do that, but for the most part, they want to air it out. If we can't blow the top off at least 3 times a game, that's a poor game for us.
right.
And that may be the defensive mind of me, and some offensive guys would say that ain't enough. That ain't enough. We got to have 6 big plays in there, 6 plays over 20 yards or more to win. I'm like, I don't see that, but that's just me and the way I think about things. I mean, because you know how we was raised. Hey, we play good defense. We control the clock. We minimize the score. And when it comes to the fourth quarter, because we're bigger and stronger and more better coached and more in line to do stuff, the fourth quarter we take over the game. And hey, we snuff y'all out. Because you can remember many times we play teams. They're running on first down, second down, and we might not see another run until the second half. This time, no. They got that quarterback read stuff now, college game and stuff, where they running these quarterbacks until they get a franchise quarterback who's running that zone read and he get his butt toe up.
You can say ass, go ahead.
Get his ass toe out the frame. They gonna keep doing this crap until they do it. And that's the hard part about it. So you got to play that stuff now. And they building these quarterbacks to get in there because it's no longer my first progression, my second progression, maybe my third progression. Is I ain't got the RPO, give. If I ain't got the RPO or give, I'm looking for a quick inside breaking route. And since the league has changed the way people tackle, because anything that used to come inside, if you had the nerve to come inside, you're gonna get your head tore off. Chuck Cecil, Wes Hawkins, Jandre Waters, those are Wes was the biggest one of the bunch, and he wasn't a huge man, but he was a big fella for a safety.
Yeah.
Hey, think about like Steve Atwater coming off the end, big as Steve was back then. These dudes
there was no wonder guys didn't want to go across the middle. Now they run across the middle. They run across and they don't even look for the safety anymore.
No.
They're looking back at the quarterback.
Yeah, man.
So you got this transformation of the game. And the NFL is kind of a copycat league. Once a team has success with it, like, when you look at Sean McVay, his first couple of years, everyone was trying to emulate that. It started with Chip Kelly. All Chip was going to come in and change, the NFL with his offense. And, after 3 years, he got his ass run up out of Philadelphia. And then Sean McVay came in, and he was the new offensive guru that was going to just light the NFL up. He had a couple of years of success. And then when teams figured out, that, hey, you can, that Jared Goff is the type of guy that if you can get to him, that he'll throw it to you and he can be highly ineffective.
Mm-hmm.
I think that precipitated this move where, now they make the trade, for Matthew Stafford. But when you look at the game, and then you look at the Arizona Cardinals. The Arizona Cardinals went and brought in Cliff Kingsbury. Cliff Kingsbury never had a winning season at Texas Tech. Never been a winning coach, at the collegiate level. But because of a guy like Patrick Mahomes, a guy like some of the quarterbacks that came out of there, and some of the wide receivers that came out of that, all of a sudden he's looked upon as this offensive guru. Nothing, in my opinion, in the game, Clyde, ever changes. You taking third down offense. We saw it in the run and shoot, the K gun, the red gun. We've seen all of this stuff before. The question is, can defense coordinators make the adjustment, to force the issue? And maybe it never changes. But the question I wanted to ask, things change and things evolve. do you ever see the NFL going back, or do you think that, what we're seeing now is what the NFL is going to look like forever? Because to your point, you said some coaches want to do more. In Philadelphia, we got an owner that's basically said we want a high-power, elite-level offense. You can't win a Super Bowl without a high-power, elite-level offense. And it's been talked about, before Doug Peterson got fired, that they had this Tuesday powwow every single Tuesday where he asked him, well, how come you didn't throw the ball more? Well, why'd you run the ball here? Well, why'd you go for it on here? I mean, how can a head coach, live through that? I feel for Doug, but at the same time, his mentality is high-power offense. We got to put points on the board. And the Eagles just drafted their 12th wide receiver, Clyde, in the last 11 drafts this year. Wow. So that just goes to show you how much he wants a high-powered offense.
Well, I mean, you are the owner of a team. You're a billionaire, and it's a billionaires club. And if I was a billionaire and I owned a football team, if I was a billionaire, I wouldn't own a football team. But if I say do this, I can care less about what they say because I own the team. Right. But when it boils down to big picture, as in football, I consider myself a football guy and thinking about some things. That's the mentality of this league now. You got to score more points. They're not worried about stopping people, And I just believe that when defenses catch up to offense, they change the rules to make it more of an offensive game. And it's to me, that's been before we started playing, and I watched it change in there. Because you think about when the 70s, when you had those guys out the Raider, Lester Hayes, all to stick him on his socks and putting his hands up. I don't know what Lester ran as a 40 time, but the way he was mugging and grabbing and pulling and tugging on those guys, hey, you ain't go. No wonder he's a great corner. Nobody can get away from him. And then he got all that stuff. So if his hands just touch the ball, it's sticking to it. The rules allowed him to do those things. And now you see these athletes are changing and all the stuff. They're getting to be more, they're faster, they're bigger. I don't know if they're as tough as they used to be. No. Because injuries and all the stuff right there. Because you find some tough guys, but then you find some guys like, what? He ain't playing because his elbow hurt? Because his finger hurt? And he's a lineman? Get out of here. Yeah, but those are the things that I see in there. And with, Mr. Larry deciding that, hey, to have that conversation every Tuesday, if I was a coach, I'll be like, you know what? I need to find another job somewhere else, because when you getting second guessed by your boss about what you're doing, and you feel pretty good about what you're doing, because there's only 32 of those jobs. So if he hired you, he must have felt confident enough in you to do what you said you're going to do. But if you feel like, you know what, you got to ask me these questions every day, questioning my decisions that you hired me to do, it'd be different if I took the number one pick overall and blew it and didn't have something in there, or I go for it on fourth down from the -5, and I need to make a touchdown. Right. I can understand those kind of questions. Like, what would you thinking about? Why would you run for the ball and you got 20 yards to make first down and you go, why you ain't punt? It ain't the last play of the game. I can understand those questions on a Tuesday. But you questioning me about my decisions as a play caller, as a head coach, as something like that undermines his authority as a coach. The one thing I always say that, as an owner, you got to let those coaches coach on the weekends or Sunday, Monday, whatever that is, the game is on. And if you don't let them coach and don't let them do their job, they're going to always look behind them and wonder, oh, am I making the right decision? Because that's the worst place to be in as a play call and decision maker, is second guessing yourself. because you got to decide. Hey, in a split second, you got 10 seconds to decide for a play that's going to be ran 24 seconds from now. How are you going? How are you going to think about? Will he be all right with this call? No. Except that, you know what, we won or lost. And that's how I should be judged on wins or losses. Don't worry about winning or stuff. If I'm winning, yeah. But if I'm losing, I deserve everything I'm getting. But if I'm winning, leave me the fuck alone.
I think that I'm trying to find this question here. This guy here, Primal, he said, Jeffrey Lurie was pissed after winning the Super Bowl from what he heard. Listen, you win 41-33. I think you scored enough points. The guy you need to be pissed at is the damn defensive coordinator who gave up 500 yards passing to Tom Brady and was really a strip sack away from probably getting to a point where they could tie the game,
Yeah, I mean, those are the things I would question also. I mean, first of all, if I won the Super Bowl, being that I never won a Super Bowl, I'm not blessed like you to win a Super Bowl, I'd have been high-fiving, screaming, dancing, all the stuff right there because why? I won.
Mm-hmm.
There's one champion. One. There ain't going to be two champions. There's going to be one. And if there's one champion and I won it, man, I ain't caring about that. I'm going to have me a good time tonight. It's going to be all fun because why? We won. Now, if you're going to sit there and be pissed because they scored 41 points and the other team scored 38 points, yeah, but that's after the fact. I'll worry about that tomorrow. I'll worry about that 2 days from now. I just won the Super Bowl. Matter of fact, I'll worry about that next month.
Hey, listen, no doubt about it whatsoever. But it's just, you talk about owners meddling. And so a lot of things came out, about the Eagles owner and the GM and things that happened internally, with Doug. And it was just, so much dysfunction, and when you look at the Dallas Cowboys, it's the same exact way. I love seeing them in their misery. But at the other end of the spectrum, when you look at them from a talent standpoint, they got bad defensively last year. But when you look at what they was doing before Dak broke his ankle, they're going to be a problem on the offensive side of the ball. And they should be a problem as far as the division is concerned. But, now everybody else is kind of caught up to them, or they're catching up. And the problem is, quite frankly, when you really stop and you sit back and you look at it, it's Jerry Jones because he just won't shut up. I mean, what owner do you see that do post-game press conferences where he's talking about what's going on with his team and the undue pressure that he put on not only the players but the head coach and Jason
It's Mike McCarthy now.
Yeah, but Jason Garrett's last year is where it started.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, every time you turn around, listen, at the end of that year, the Cowboys was in the playoff hunt. They was in the division hunt. And Jerry went on and started talking about, he wasn't sure about, what the situation was going to be at the end of the year. You in the playoff hunt. Why are you standing in front of the media and having these conversations and putting that pressure not only on your coach and the pressure on your coaching staff, especially if they're in the final year of their 1 year of their deals from a positional standpoint, but the undue pressure that you put on the players, because now the players are trying to figure out, what we got to do to go out and, and save coach's job. But, to that point, you got owners, a few of them, not a lot of them, that are meddling in that way. And I think it's extremely divisive. Now, the only good part about Jeffrey Lurie is we hear that this is what's going on. We don't get to see it like you see it with Jerry Jones. We just hear it. And I always say where there's some smoke, there's some fire. Okay. There's a whole lot of truth out there, but there's a whole lot of lies. But that means that something is true and something is a lie.
Well, but that personality, that made him to become an owner is what made him a billionaire.
True.
And when a guy is used to controlling things, he ain't gonna turn it off. He ain't. He's gonna sit down and he's gonna try and control everything he can and all the stuff because he wills in his mind, he willing this because it's me, because and when those owners that do meddle, you watch the ones that have a lot of success and a lot of longevity and a lot of creative ways of trying to keep their team together and keep all the stuff in there. Those are the ones that has a lot of success and all the stuff. Don't get me wrong, just like you, a happy misery for them Cowboys, but understand this on that when it comes to players, they got a bunch of good ones. A bunch of really, really good ones, especially on the offensive side. And they ain't bad on defense neither. But the issue comes in is whether or not he can step back and let those guys be what he did, like he did with when they won those Super Bowls with Mike and Emmett them and all the stuff, that he can step back. But then he had a head coach who had the same personality that he had. Jimmy Johnson had the same and that was the conflict. Oh, it was fine when it's winning and all that stuff, but if you ain't winning Super Bowls, can those egos stay in check?
Right.
And that's what it was when they didn't win it. Well, is it you? Is it me? It's you. And I'm the boss and you're out of here. So but that's just the way I sit down and think about this, because you see a lot of teams like, why they not winning? And the reason they're not winning is because one person can't get out of the way out of another one. One guy wants to see it this way and one guy wants to see it this way, but they can't mesh. They can't gel together and become as one. So it's always conflict. And then you know how it is with us as players. We see them acting a fool. We look at them like, you know what? I don't know which one of these summer guns to trust. You're not just messing with my career. You're messing with my family, because this is how I chose to support and feed and house and clean and do everything for my family.
Right.
I didn't choose to go out here and become a rocket scientist. No, I became a football player. And then when I see ownership and coaches in constant contact and constant conflict, dude.
Yeah.
Either I'm going to try and get super paid or I'm going to try and get out of there.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. It's funny, man, because you can see it all over the place, man. On draft night, they drafted this kid, Milton Williams, defensive tackle. And Howie Roseman, the GM, and Donahoe was standing there. When they made the pick, Donahoe was like, and then when Howie came over to dap him up, you could see that you could see the conflict. Now, they tried to smooth it over and try to make it seem like it wasn't nothing. But that's what I'm talking about. Now you got these cameras that are in, that are in the war rooms, and the NFL is giving everybody access to what's going on. And it's one of those situations where it just wasn't a good look. It wasn't a good look. It wasn't good optics for, us as fans looking in and seeing, that they weren't on the same page. And I asked the question, I'm like, man, didn't you know that camera was there? Didn't y'all have a conversation that, if we get to this position and this guy's available, this is the guy that we picking? Yeah. It seemed to me that Donahoe thought that they were making one pick, and Howie went rogue and just made another pick, and it pissed him off.
Well, see, that's the other side of it right there, because it is an order. You got a pecking order. You either gonna draft by positional needs or you're gonna draft by best available. That's what most people do, as in they're moving us down and stuff right there. But if a guy who's in a position of authority says, I like this guy, even though he's number 12 on our board, and the number one pick right here is, I think I'm gonna go with this 12 pick. And then everybody's moving like, dude, he's 12 guys, he's 11 guys less than what this guy is right here. But you felt good with him? I mean, that's the kind of stuff right there. That's why people don't like people, because they're not truthful with what the information they have. Right. They're not truthful with being saying what's true to their mind. Reason why I want to take him. And all he had to do was take 2 minutes before the pick, because they got anywhere between what is it, 2 to 15 or something like that, whatever the rounds it is.
Right.
Hey, this is what I'm thinking. Got a short time to bounce it off to convince me that I don't need to do this. It don't take much to do that conversation.
Right.
It don't take much. But there are people that are afraid of conversations. You know, as we got, especially myself, like I say, as I've gotten older, it used to be like, yeah, man, I ain't paying you no attention and all this stuff. Now I'm more confrontational about like, that's some bull. I know first you gonna say some shit like that. So me and my world and all the stuff, where I think of it is like, after you've been fired, I guess that's why Buddy was the way he was. After you've been fired so many times, and if you know you're a good person, you know you do a good job, you'll get another job. But when you sit there and just make a decision without informing your soldiers who are fighting for you, in this case, those guys are doing those reports. They're evaluating these players. They're finding out every little nitpicky thing, because when they talk about evaluating, it ain't just football anymore. It's their personal life. It's their family lives. It's what they did in the 10th grade. It goes back, and they get all this information to pull in there, whether or not he's a good person or a bad person. And they put all this information together to decide on whether or not he's a good football player. The film says he's a good football player, but he's a turd as a person and all the stuff. Some people won't touch people. Wow. And then there's other people like, you know what? That's the kind of guy we want, because he's an edgy guy. He's going to be something else. And then when we get him in the building, we can help mold him and help put him in the right programs to make him a better human. But a lot of people won't touch those guys. And then when a guy who they thought, and it's like, huh? You ain't even conversate with me? Dude, yeah. I'm about to give you the finger.
Clyde, I tell you one thing, man. You know, you touched on something, you know, that that I think is real. You know, in order to play the game, man, you have to have this edge about you. You got to have this chippiness about you. Now, there's a difference between having a guy, you know, who's had run-ins with the law and run-in, you know, with the opposite sex, and you know, had just had problems. Okay. There's a difference, you know, and I believe in second chances. I believe that, you know, when you're 17, 18, 19, sometimes 20 years old, you know, you can't even make proper decisions. You know, we did it. You know, if you look back, you know, our rookie year, some of the dumb stuff that we did, you know, every young player goes through that. But I think, you know, when you're drafting a player, you know, especially when you're a position coach. As a position coach, you know, you just don't hand a guy a game plan every week. You know, in a lot of instances, you know, you've been doing this a long time, but I'm just thinking about some of the coaches I had, some of the good ones, and some of the ones that, you know, I wish it was just left me the hell alone a long time ago. But when you get a guy as a position coach, it's your job to, you know, teach him the fundamentals, help him learn the system, help him to try to learn as much about the system as he can, because the more information he has, the better football player he can be. But we don't know what's going on in people's lives away from the game of football, you know. So as a football player, I mean, even when I coached the little kids, when my son was playing, I wanted to get to know all 25 of those kids. I need to know their personality, whether I need to kick him in the ass or pat him on the back, you know. I need to know, you know, whether he's a good student or not, because the things I'm trying to teach him, maybe he just ain't equipped, you know, to learn it, you know, and I got to figure out a different way to get him to learn it. But when you get to the collegiate level and the pro level, now you become psychologist, you become dad, you become friend, mentor. I mean, all of these things come into focus when you become a position coach at the collegiate, and sometimes even at the high school level, because that, for me, that's what I had at the high school level. I had a mentor, dad, because my dad wasn't around, but that dude, Jimmy Pinkston, that he meant the world to me, man. He was the difference between me going to college and getting to the NFL and not. So being able to be those things to players is a big deal. So sometimes you can take a guy that wants to be a better person and help make him a better person. I think the determining factor in this whole evaluation that you're talking about is trying to figure out, does he want to be a better person? We know he can play football and he's supremely talented, but does he want to be a better person? And do we have the coaching at his position to help him become a better person? Or do we want to?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you hit it on the head because college is more so than the pros, because pros, they got programs. They got the player programs guy, which help in all the psychological stuff, helping the family stuff, helping all the stuff for them. But then you, as the coaches, all the stuff, you should take a personal relationship with each and individual player in this. Get to know them and all the stuff for that. I'm not saying that you got to be their father, because there's some cats got a father in their life.
Right.
That was there, that showed him and that did these things for him. And then there's other cats who didn't. But you can just be a mentor all the time. You know, that's 100% job right there. It's like, hey, I'm trying to be better. And I tell my guys every day, look, I'm working on me. I'm trying to be a better person too. So that means that I'm trying to learn how to deal with things other than in your face, right or wrong, black or white. That's how it is. You know, I'm trying to be that guy that says, hey, there might be a little gray, there might be something in there. But when it boils down to it, you're doing it right or you're doing it wrong. And if you want to be a better person, you have to work at being a better person. And you just like you got to work at being a better football player. And if they don't want to be those things and they don't want to try those things right here, you keep telling them, hey, there is two options that you have. You keep working on to try and be a better person, or you out the door. Because in the pro game, there is 150 guys waiting for 150 guys to get a chance to do what you're doing.
Right.
So it ain't gonna be one or two guys. No, the line keeps growing and it gets bigger every year because there's new products coming out every year. So you gotta understand that. And I tell them, you gotta understand this. If you can't get right, and you can't do the right things, they'll bring somebody else in here who will do the right things and will want to act like a decent human instead of a turd. No matter how great a football player you are, don't get me wrong, the better you are, the more chances you're going to get.
Right.
Because there's a lot of guys out there like, he got another chance? What? What? No.
Yeah, I know one that got a Super Bowl ring last year.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So if they're going to do those things like that with these people, hey, man, you got so many opportunities in this game. Because after a while, they ain't going to try you no more. They ain't going to say, no, it's not worth the trouble. And when they sit down and they say, oh, they do their evaluations, they see if you're a good person, if you got this stuff, and then they try to find out why this stuff happens, because sometimes there's always a reason, but you don't know. Sometimes it may have been like, you know what, that was the only option that they had to do that. But then there's other times where it's like, oh, this is the fourth time he did that.
Yeah. Choice.
Dude, that's a choice. That's what he chose to be. And it's like, no, and some people will take chances. Like I said, hey, we got a year or two. We can see what we can happen. No. I'm like this. Hey, dude, you got tomorrow. Because that's all you got.
Right.
You got today. And if you wake up in the morning, you got tomorrow. If you ain't getting it right today, you might get a chance tomorrow if you wake up. If you don't, next man. And I hate to sound so crude about it, but when you talk about pro game, they is really in the mentality of we only as good as our worst or our weakest link. And they got a guy who over there that can't play dead in the Cowboy Western, but he's our best option, our worst, our next option. He'll play until they find somebody to replace him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when they talk about these dudes, man, I'm like, you know what? If you're a turd, I really don't like messing with you unless you're trying to make a conscious effort to be different.
Yeah.
because I get it, because it's like sometimes that thing is powerful, man. It makes you, ooh, I can't fight it no more. Yeah. All right,
Yeah,
keep
man.
fighting, man. Keep fighting. Keep fighting.
I tell you what, man, I'm excited for the young guys that you're gonna coach, man, because we haven't had a conversation like this, but the mentorship, and not only from the football standpoint, but the life skills and the mentorship, that you're gonna bring to these kids, is gonna make a huge difference in their life because you've lived it, you've experienced it, and what you're doing is you're paying it forward. My brother, that is our hour, man. I appreciate you. I appreciate you, man. I love
Man,
you.
you my guy, dog.
You
You
know
know
it.
what? If you say, hey man, be on the flight, I need you tomorrow. Hey, I'm out. Hey,
You know
coach,
it, man.
Eddie, I gotta go handle my hair. I gotta handle my guy. My
You,
guy.
you know how we do, man. Like I always tell you, if you're in trouble on Mars, I'm on the next spaceship. But man, I tell my guys every single week, man, that our time is our most valuable commodity, man. And brother, hammer time. I appreciate the last hour, man. It's been great, absolutely great.
My guy, man. Anytime, man, you just call me. All right.
You got it, brother.
All right, love you,
Now,
brother.
before we roll out, this week we got giveaway Tuesday. Next week we will have our giveaway. I got an Eagles hat, an Eagles football, I should say, an Eagles helmet that I'll be signing and giving away. And you guys see the hat, my Seth Joyner logo hat. Now, how do you participate? You want to like and share on Instagram? Go follow me and subscribe on my YouTube channel. On Instagram is Seth Joyner Show. On YouTube is the Seth Joyner Show. And then what you got to do is you got to tag 3 friends on Instagram, tag 3 friends on Facebook, the Seth Joyner Show on Facebook, and the winners will be announced on Father's Day. That's it. Thank you guys for tuning in. As I always say, be good to each other and take care of each other, but most importantly, love each other. I see you guys right back here next week. Maybe not next week. I think I'm traveling next week. I'll post and let you guys know. Peace.
All right, Hammer.
All right, man.